Hello everyone, Dr. Hatami is here. In this short video, we're going to focus learning about the nucleus, the very important part of the cell. Nucleus found inside of the cell, and this is actually the control center of the cell. Why is a control center? Because actually all of the genetic materials would be found inside of the nucleus. So the information that tells the cell how to make proteins and carry out all of its function would be found in our genetic materials, which would be found inside of the nucleus. So here you can see a focused picture of the nucleus. So in this short video, we're going to talk about the structure associated with the nucleus. So in this picture, you only can see the nucleus. So we're going to talk about a little bit regarding the chromatin, which is a genetic material found inside of this nucleus. We're going to talk about the nucleolus. We're going to talk about the nuclear envelope, nuclear pores, and then a little bit regarding the nucleoplasm. Let's start with the nucleoplasm. Remember when we talked about the cytoplasm inside of the cell? Nucleoplasm is similar to the cytoplasm, but is found only inside of the nucleus. The nucleoplasm is the jelly-like fluid. So we have nucleoplasm, similar as cytoplasm. Jelly-like material or fluid found inside of the nucleus. This fluid helps support and protect the DNA and other structures within the nucleus. For example, one of the structures inside of the nucleus is called nucleolus. It's darker, is a round region you can find inside of the nucleus. So actually the nucleolus is where ribosomes are made. So ribosomes are the organelle. We can find them inside of the cytoplasm. These tiny organelles are responsible to produce protein, and nucleolus is where ribosomes are made. So the nucleolus plays an important role in protein production. What else do we have inside of our nucleus? Do not forget our genetic material, DNA and our genetic material. So DNA actually stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. That is one of the macromolecules found in our body, in our cells. It's a nucleic acid, and then DNA actually contains genes. And each gene gives the instruction for making a specific protein. And those proteins are responsible for most of the cell's structure and activity. So that is the reason we say the nucleus is control center, or DNA really controls almost everything that happens inside of the cell. So inside of the nucleus we have DNA. DNA has genes, and gene has instruction for production of protein, and then proteins are responsible for most of the cell's structure and activity. Okay, but how this DNA can be found inside of the nucleus? So we actually can define the genetic material or DNA in form of chromatin or chromosome. Both of them are about the genetic material, the DNA. So most of the time, DNA exists in chromatin, which is the loose thread-like form of the genetic material. When the cell is getting ready to divide, the chromatin coils up and then form tight, visible, and short genetic material, which now is called chromosome. So one more time, what is the difference between chromatin and chromosome? So chromatin most of the time going to be found inside of the nucleus, is a DNA in a loose and thread-like form form, but when cells getting ready to divide, the chromatin coils up tightly and form the chromosomes, which is easier to move and separate during the cell division. So if you look at like a cell during the cell division, by using microscope, you can see their genetic materials. You actually can see their DNA. You can see their chromosome because the chromosome is visible during the cell division. So that is actually visible and tight form of chromatin or genetic material. Okay, now let's talk about the nuclear envelope, the membrane which is gonna surround the nucleus. So the entire nucleus is surrounded by a nuclear envelope, which is actually a double membrane, means it has two layers. So this envelope helps protect the DNA inside. There are also small openings that you can see here. These small openings are called the nuclear pores. The pores act like tiny doorways, allowing substances such as RNA and proteins to move in and out of the nucleus whenever it's needed. Okay, so now let's review whatever we learned so far. So we talked about the nucleus, which it contains the genetic information for production of all proteins and carrying out of all cellular functions and also structure. We talked about DNA, which is our genetic material, can be found in the form of chromatin or in the form of chromosome. Whenever we have chromatin, most of the time, whenever the cell is at rest or it's not during the cell division. But when they're gonna be kind of coiled up tightly and make a visible form is called chromosome. So chromosome is the visible form of the chromatin, as I mentioned. And then we talk about the genes, how the genes gonna be like translated to proteins and then carry out all the cell's function. We talked about the nucleoplasm, like a cytoplasm, the fluid inside of the nucleus. We also talked about the nucleolus, which is a dark region inside of the nucleus responsible to produce ribosome and also to produce proteins. Then we talked about the nuclear envelope, which is going to surround the nucleus, and nuclear pores are the opening in the nuclear envelope, which it lets some substances go in and out of the nucleus. Thank you for your attention, and let's watch the rest of organelles in another video.